It's August 30th, 2015, and you're listening to Session 3, Episode 1 of The Road to Japan. Konnichiwa. Minasan, genki desu ka? Welcome once again to a new episode and a new session of The Road to Japan. My name is Nico. I will be your host as usual. So, let's, just kind of tackle the obvious elephant in the room. I've been gone for quite a while. It's probably been close to 4 months at this point, somewhere around there. There's obviously a lot to discuss since I've been gone so long, including what has basically kept me away. So to start, I will address the fact that unlike session 1, session 2 just sort of stopped. There was no proper ending. I just kind of sort of dropped off the face of the earth there. So kind of a quick reminder, if you are one of the people subscribed to the show in iTunes, or perhaps you subscribe on YouTube, I just want you to know that, the episodes will keep going. It's just a matter of, I guess when I get around to recording episodes. So as you're noticing, this is session 3, episode 1. It's, the end of August. Basically we have already started a new semester over here at the Road to Japan headquarters. So, as I said, with session 1, I gave kind of a report card, kind of a final status of how I did on everything. So I'm going to kind of bunch up the, how shall I say, the first episode of session 3, talking about the new semester. But I'm also going to wrap up, kind of what sort of happened, with me just sort of disappearing like I did. So to begin, jumping into it, as, for those of you that may not remember, I kind of left off in session 2 with just 2 classes, because I dropped the other 2 that I had, being English and natural science. I dropped those because, they were accelerated courses and I didn't really care for the way that those classes were structured. So I thought I'd basically withdraw from them before, getting an unsatisfactory grade to me personally. And just, give it another shot in a later semester. So, the second session pretty much ended with just the 2 classes, history and sociology, which I was still in. The good news is that I ended up with A's in both classes. I'm not going to say it's bad news, but I will admit and confess that, the things that happened as far as what led to me, kind of vanishing from basically everything was, right after I recorded the last episode that you either listened to or watched on YouTube, I ended up, I went to MGC as I had stated in the episode. But the problem is that every year at MGC, there ends up being like a bug going around. It's like I don't know what you want to call it. We usually call it the MGC flu, or the nerd flu, as some have adopted. And basically that hit me, pretty hard. It put me out of work for pretty much about a week. I literally was just home in bed, feeling like death. I wasn't actually dying, but pretty much the only time that I ever miss work is if it gets to the point where I can't even get out of bed. And that's pretty much what happened. I just got really, really weak. And despite my efforts, I ended up being pretty dehydrated. And it just really weakened me in all aspects, not just physically, but even mentally as well. Like I don't know, it did something to my motivation and really just kind of sapped me of all energy, just kind of all around. And as a result, I wasn't staying as motivated to, keep up with things going on in my classes. But I mean, to be all honest here, I was totally expecting to come out with both classes only with B's. And that was, that didn't help. It basically added to the, lack of motivation and, I wouldn't say depression, but it was somewhere along those lines. Like I was just feeling really down and worn out. So, once the semester was over, I kind of just basically took a break from everything. Just focused on work, and, kind of getting my strength back up. And then, lo and behold, I was really pleasantly surprised to see that I was able to still squeak out A's in both those classes. I mean, to be honest, my my history teacher flat out told me, he's like, you should be expecting to probably get a B with how the semester ended. But I can't say exactly what it was that swayed it to be an A instead, but there are no complaints on this end for sure. So as a result, history, I'm done with history as far as my time at MATC is concerned. History is cleared off the books. I got A's in both the classes that were required for it. And I got, one sociology class knocked out. I think I still have one or two left to take, but they're more specific topics. They're not like a broad look at sociology like this last class was. And I gotta say, man, that sociology teacher ended up being trying to think of a polite way to put this, but he ended up being a kind of a jerk. When I was trying to address frustrations, he basically said, you shouldn't address frustrations to me, the teacher, because I'm the teacher, and blah, blah, blah. And I have frustrations because of the fact that, teaching is still, a very, very high possibility for me at some point in my future. And, I look to the instructors that I have basically as role models to also pull tips from, as far as what I'm going to be trying to implement, if I ever do become a teacher myself. So, when I address things like, hey, the fact that you got a bunch of questions wrong and your solution was, instead of fixing the quiz or whatever that we were taking, that you just gave us free points. Ultimately, yeah, I shouldn't complain because it was free points. Even if you got a good score, or a perfect score even, it just added to it. So it actually ended up being sort of like extra credit. But what really irritated me was the fact that this guy, like a lot of my online instructors, was just lazy about grading any of my homework. Namely just stuff I had to turn in and that he had to, grade himself, as opposed to like the quizzes that we did, which was just automatically done through the website and everything. Speaking more to like papers and such that we were turning in. One paper in particular was originally assigned as an extra credit piece of work, which I did and I turned in, and I actually thought it came to the point where, he wasn't grading it, and he didn't grade it for like close to 3 weeks or so, maybe even longer than that. I'm struggling to remember really. But what was odd was that one of our final assignments was basically the same thing. So, me being just the type of person that I am, I was like, I'm not really going to rewrite this paper, especially since I'm seeing that the extra credit assignment hasn't been graded. So I assume that he either didn't grade it or, thought it was late or something and was refusing to grade it. I wasn't 100% sure. So what I did is I just turned it in again in place of, that other assignment that we got. And the crazy thing is that the guy didn't even pay attention. He actually ultimately graded both the papers that were identical, mind you, within like a couple days of one another. And he gave me full credit for both of them, even though I gave the same thing. So you figure that out. But, honestly, in the end, I really shouldn't be complaining because I still, came out with an A in that class. But I mean, I don't know. It's just something about how that all panned out that kind of irritated me. And to add to it, like that irritation just led me to just completely saying, F it. I don't even care about the final paper that we had to write. I literally just crunched numbers and was like, all right, well, even if I don't do this final paper, I'll come out with a B. And that was me, kind of, admitting defeat, if you will. Just I don't know, something about just that last month of the semester just really kicked my ass. And, it was probably a combination of stress and, things were going on at work where I was getting really, really stressed out as well. And I just, it was a real struggle to finish out that semester, but I did. And I thankfully came out on top as well. So as I just mentioned, things were going on at work as well. And this was probably one of the bigger things that kept me away from, doing anything over the summer was the fact that, the deal that I made with my boss was that I was going to finish out the semester, as we basically agreed. And then after the semester was done and my time was completely freed up, then I was going to move to regular shift hours, which was then 6 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, over the course of the summer, the plan was for them to finally hire me on as a permanent employee and then have that all taken care of by the time the next semester rolled around, and then I would switch over to second shift. So then basically everything would be good to go, and I could, work second shift to be a permanent employee. So I wouldn't have that constant anxiety that I've had for the last 2 years of, is today going to be my last day because I'm still a temp and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that I met with my boss and, basically this was the agreement that we had, back in January, I think. Somewhere around there is when I originally spoke to him about this, and he agreed to it. He's like, yeah, that totally sounds fine. So then, end of the semester rolls around. I go to speak with him, and I'm like, look, I can now work regular hours and stuff. So now we can work on getting hired. And he said, okay. But he added to it. He's like, well, we can have you work the regular hours, but there's no guarantee that we're going to hire you on. And at that point, I just, in my head, just flipped out. I was like, this has gone too far. It's clear that they are holding back on, not hiring me because of the fact that they know that I'm in school and it's not for machining, and they're basically getting butthurt about it. So, they're going to pull this crap basically until I do pretty much what I ended up doing, which was leaving. So I quit that job. I obviously didn't quit it before I had something else lined up. Fortunately, around that time, a friend of mine that I work with, was also looking to leave. He was looking to leave for other reasons, but the thing is that another this is a lot of, a lot of connections going on basically. But a mutual coworker was telling him about a place that he used to work at that was currently looking for people, and said that my buddy would be a good fit. So during his, application interview process and so forth, as he was learning about this other company, he determined that actually he thought maybe I might be a good fit for working here as well. And of course, he knew that I was, really stressing out about the fact that, I didn't want to lose my job while I was in the middle of going to school. That's just been kind of not necessarily a nightmare of mine, but, definitely not, something that doesn't really allow me to relax fully. So he said, well, the worst that'll happen is that they don't hire you and you stay here as a temp and, look for something else, or maybe they ultimately will hire you. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. So I ended up, submitting my resume, and they interviewed with me, and they seemed to like what they saw. And, originally I was going to keep the schooling a secret, because at this point, my desperation was starting to win over with my honesty. The fact that I'm not getting permanent work because everyone's, taking into account that I'm not, going to work there forever, which ultimately baffles me. And thankfully it baffled this new company as well. So I still ended up telling them, I'm like, look, I'm in school. I'll tell you, it's not for machining, which was interesting because this place also has a apprenticeship program. So essentially what that means is that people that apply and get selected for this apprenticeship will go to school during the semester, basically like I'm doing right now. But they also get paid to go to school, because my understanding, it's like one or 2 days a week that they're not going to be at work, because they're in class instead. But the thing is that, if you're in this apprenticeship program, they pay you for those hours that you're in class. And then in combination, I think it's like 2 years of schooling, and then you got to do another. And then while you're doing that, you're doing a total of like 4 years of machine time or something along those lines, where they're basically tracking it by the hours that you work. So they, as I said, I went in saying, look, I'm going to school, but I'm going for a bachelor's degree, and I don't even know what field yet, because, well, I'll get to that in a little bit here. But I basically said, I'm in an undeclared bachelor's degree program right now. So, at this point, I feel like I've still got the years of experience that I can offer a company, just to let me have a permanent job while I'm trying to get myself through school. And thankfully, meeting with the head of their HR department, and I think he's a vice president of the company. I'm not sure, but he was another person that I interviewed with. And I said this to both of them basically. And they were okay with it. They like me were interested in utilizing the skills that I have that can contribute to the company, while I'm going through school, and I mean, I may have fibbed a little bit when when they were like, well, you're going in a bachelor's program. That doesn't necessarily mean you got to leave when you're done. And I said, oh yeah, sure. No, it could totally lead to me getting some other kind of position at this place, which it was a total 100% lie. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if there is anything that I can get into doing, for work that isn't machining, I will take it in a heartbeat. Something that basically can pay me enough to, continue doing what I'm doing, and be not machining. Oh yeah, I will totally do it. I don't give a crap. That's just kind of how this whole situation is sort of caused me to start thinking, is the fact that nobody gives a crap about what you're necessarily doing. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of you out there that may be listening thinking like, yeah, my company doesn't really give a crap what I'm doing. They only care about their bottom line. And I mean, even though this company is thankfully giving me a chance to, do what I need to do while working for them, they still don't care. I'm still in the end just a number to them. I mean, I'll admit, I'm not, I know it sounds like I'm just really poo-pooing this place. But in the eyes of a machinist, this is actually a pretty good place to work at. I'd even go as far to say as if this was one of my earlier machining jobs, I might have not even been convinced to go seek work outside of the realm of machining, because there are pretty decent benefits and perks to working at this place. But I'll tell you, this place, it deals with a lot heavier parts that we make. It's basically a place that makes like very large bearings and parts, I guess, that go into bridges and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just there basically just to do the machining and do what I need to. I don't necessarily really care about where these parts go or what they do or anything like that. But what I'm trying to get at is that these parts are probably the heaviest that I've worked with. So much so that we usually have a series of overhead cranes within the building that help us transport the heavier stuff. But there are days where I am the crane. And sometimes the parts are manageable, for me to lift on my own. Other times these parts can be somewhere, realm of like 40-50 pounds. But they're still they're considered too light to bother with a crane, especially since, just the way that the paperwork goes, they expect you to still do this in a pretty quick amount of time. So even if I were to use the crane, it'd just be eating up my time, and I'd still wouldn't be going fast enough, which of course, as always in the world of machining, it's always about how fast you can do things, not how good the quality is. Although I will say that this place does focus a lot more on quality, which is one of the reasons why my buddy thought I might be a better fit for it, as opposed to where we were before. And I would agree with that. It definitely does take a little bit more advantage of my attention to detail and so forth. But in the end, they still only, they still care about speed. So, I've made it, no secret at that place that, yeah, I'm in school to use my brain, not my hands, and so on and so forth. So, I just am kind of keeping that a little bit more on the down low at this point, because I'm still in what they call like an introductory period. So, I got hired right at the tail end of June. That's basically when I started, and I'm in like a 90-day probationary period. So, I'm still, basically getting it constantly evaluated, and every 30 days they give me like this review, kind of like a status update, basically saying like, yeah, we still like having you around. We're not going to fire you, blah, 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 blah. What made me a little paranoid though, is that when I had my first review after the first 30 days, they give you paperwork, basically like a copy of what their notes are and everything. And one thing I noticed on the 30-day review is that they, at the very bottom, they have 3 options selectable saying whether they want to basically fire me or not. So it's yes, no, or unsure. And while the final answer was no, I saw whiteout on unsure. So that made me a little paranoid, and I, the paranoia will basically continue until this whole 90-day period is up. And I mean, they originally thought I was basically just indifferent to the job, which I pretty much am. But I am doing more to at least give them the illusion that I'm interested in the job. So, I was working a lot of overtime. Well, not a lot, but, I was basically working overtime when they asked me to, just so it would make things look better. But I still put my foot down once the semester started, and I told them I was not going to work any overtime during the semester, which hopefully after several weeks of overtime, they're okay with, and, realize I'm just kind of keeping my priorities straight here. But anyway, I don't think there's much else to say about the new job. It's what it is, but it's not like, a dream come true or anything. But I figure that, like, the way I put it to a lot of people is that it's sort of like not a bad place that I wouldn't mind being my last machining job. So, what that translates to is basically the fact that hopefully I can just stay here, working here while I, finish up my schooling. And I mean, a lot of times all it comes down to, once you're past your 90 days and they're like, all right, yeah, you're a permanent employee, blah, blah, blah. Which I will add is one of the reasons that I took this job, is that it's a permanent position immediately. So there's none of this temp BS that I have to go through with this place, which is really nice. So, of course, the whole 90-day deal is to basically see if, you're still going to make the cut, which, I mean, for the most part, as long as you're showing up to work and doing a decent job, that should be a no-brainer for them. But I mean, it's just been the way the last 2 years have worked out with, me getting just fired on the spot and, having to deal with all this temp crap at the last place. It's like, I'm still just a little anxious, while I'm in this 90-day period, but things are looking good. So, hopefully after about another month or so, I won't have to really worry about that anymore. And then at that point, then it's just like annual reviews where they may or may not give you a raise or anything. And at that point, I don't really care, because thankfully they're paying me the same amount that the last place did, with actually a slight increase, because now I'm working second shift. That was one of the other the other icing on the cake, if you will, is that this starts at a second shift position, which is exactly what I needed. I originally was actually interviewing for a third shift position, which is, to others, you may think of it as like a graveyard shift. Basically working throughout the night. And I mean, ultimately second or third is fine. But third gives me like the ultimate flexibility as far as my classes are concerned. Mainly because like some of my classes, just looking through like the scheduler through my school, some of them are only available in the middle of the day if I want to be in a classroom, which I do, because I absolutely loathe being in an online class, which I will get into in just a second, talking about the new semester here. So, okay, that's enough about the job. I've already gone on way long enough about a job that ultimately is really the same thing. The only nice thing is now it's permanent. I have insurance. I'm going to start earning vacation, holiday pay, all the things I basically was complaining about, at the last place. So, gambate, right? Okay, moving on. One of the other things I did over the summer was, once I started this new job, I wanted to do something to kind of fill the time, because believe it or not, when I'm not in class, I started to get kind of bored, and this summer was definitely evidence of that. I mean, I had all these plans to do stuff associated with the show and everything, but I turned my focus towards, getting the new job, and it really worked out to have a lot of my training done by the time the semester started, so I'm not having to really, rack my brain all freaking day long. Now I can just, put my brain power to work in the morning when I'm in class, and then just sort of go on autopilot when I get to work. But one of the things I was doing over the summer while I was, looking for stuff to fill the time was I started biking to work. And I'm talking in regards to a bicycle, the kind that you pedal. I don't really feel like my situation would accommodate a motorcycle very well, even though I really, really wish I had a motorcycle still. Because for those of you who don't remember, I had one in Portland and it was amazing. I mean, it got fantastic gas mileage and stuff. But I decided I need to, get a little exercise going. Just because, I don't know, I was just feeling really lazy and sloppy, and the fact that I wasn't doing anything with the show, I mean, I just was like, I need to do something. But something that wasn't, really requiring a lot aside from just physical exertion. So, I just purchased a cheap old little mountain bike. I got a couple things for it, like lights and, obviously a helmet and gloves and things like that. And I was biking to work for about a month and a half, 2 months or so. That's about all the time I really had before the semester started. And I considered riding the bike, either to and from school or still to and from work, because most days would give me enough time to come home and change into the biking gear and then bike to work. But I learned very quickly once the semester started that these early mornings are really draining. And I, by the time Friday rolled around, because I've only done 1 week so far, but man, Friday morning was a struggle to get out of bed. Just because like those mornings get earlier and earlier as the week goes on, and I was having other things happen during the week that was causing me to stay up much later than I wanted to. On top of the fact that I was trying to, stay on top of my homework as well. So I was biking to work, and it was really great. I mean, it was helping me save money on gas, and it was getting some much needed exercise to kind of burn off some of the stress and anxiety that I was constantly feeling. And I'm looking forward to doing it again next summer, because I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. Although I'm going to likely invest in a better bike that's better suited for someone my size, because I think this mountain bike is a boy's mountain bike. So it did cause a lot of like back pain and pain in my wrists and in my hands, just because of the way it forced my posture to be. So I look to get a better bike by next summer. So that's in the works. So the only other thing I did kind of in preparation for the new semester is I also built a new PC. My old desktop was a little bit overdue for an upgrade. It was probably going on 5 years old with the hardware that I had in it. And I mean, even when I built that tower, the hardware that was going inside was already old by about at least a year or so. It was still fairly new at the time, but when it comes to computer hardware, usually look to upgrade, every 3, maybe 4 years if you really want to push it. But yeah, I mean, just with everything, my old tower was starting to show its age. So I did a much needed upgrade and, got a new motherboard, a new CPU, and a new video card. So now this thing is pretty beastly. And I also, for those of you that may, be a little bit more tech savvy, I also upgraded to Windows 10, both on my desktop and laptop. I only did on my laptop at first because it was, it originally was running Windows 8.1, and I hated that. So I figured Windows 10 didn't have to really do much to be considered a better choice. But after about a week or so, I liked it enough. I was like, all right, I'll take the plunge and throw it on my desktop as well. And I mean, I'm going through, working through some bugs and stuff, but they're slowly releasing updates and making it so it runs a bit smoother. But It's always it takes time to kind of get all the bugs ironed out, but so far I like it. And in combination with the new hardware, it's pretty sweet. So, that was one of the things that was also taking up time, to get the PC built. And I actually have to install a bunch of my old software for doing things like editing the podcast. And I got to go figure out what my original settings were as well, which I have just realized. So that ought to be fun. Okay, getting into a bit more show specific stuff here. You may or may not notice that this particular episode you're listening to is not one that you can actually watch on YouTube. And that is because one of the things I thought about over the summer was the fact that my lack of motivation to get the show going again after I, recovered from being sick, after I started the new job, things of that nature, was the fact that the video production, while I really enjoyed it, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I liked doing the video. I liked, playing with the settings and kind of getting things the way I wanted them to look and sound and blah, blah, blah. But it was time consuming. It was extremely time consuming. Most days, or most times I should say, I would be spending close to a full day both editing the podcast and then editing those video segments. And sometimes I would even spill into during the week as well. It was a bit more manageable when I was only taking the 2 classes, and one of those classes being online as well. So it didn't require me, having to go all over town or anything. But I can tell you with this semester that video work is going to be, it's going to change at the very least. I'm still trying to think of how I want to implement video into the show. And I don't know. I'm definitely not going to be able to do like the types of video that you were seeing before, with me in front of my backdrop, with my lights and all that good stuff. Because while again, I enjoy doing that, it just takes too much time for all the rendering and so on and so forth. So what I'm considering doing at this point, and this is something I will explore in later episodes, is perhaps streaming the show live. So that way it still gives you something to look at, and then I can still obviously record the podcast simultaneously. And then the plan is to stream it through YouTube. And the perk of that is that in doing so, the show, once it's complete, will get archived on YouTube. So you can still search for The Road to Japan on YouTube and find these episodes that are streamed archived as well. I'm not going to obviously do that for this episode, just because I just needed to get off my ass and record something. There was a lot of stuff that I've been meaning to talk about, and all it's doing is just piling up. So I figured the easiest way just to kind of get the ball rolling again was just to go back to the basics and just record a simple audio podcast episode. So the YouTube stuff is still in the works. I have to basically give myself yet another 101 on streaming equipment and procedures and stuff. I've downloaded like this free broadcasting software, and I haven't even looked at it yet. But my understanding is that it works really well. But maybe even by the next time I do an episode, I'm not 100% sure, but streaming will definitely be something I look into. Other aspects of video I might incorporate would be maybe still taking my camera with me and doing like little bite-sized video episodes, because there are times where I'm either leaving class or sitting just in the like the break area in on the campus, and just thinking like, there's some thoughts that I could share right now, but I don't have my recorder, I don't have a camera, I don't have anything. So I figure if I keep my camera at least with me, like in my car, then maybe I can just record something really quick. It won't be fancy, but at least it's still the decent camera that I purchased, and it's still putting it to use. But it'd be subjected to like the onboard mic of the camera, so we'd have to wait and see about that. And I don't know, maybe it'd just be like while I'm sitting in the parking lot at school, and I can just kind of talk about stuff. I don't know. That's still something I'm kind of working out, but that might be something that I still use the YouTube channel for. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Okay, so moving right along here. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the current semester, which has just started earlier this week. This is the very first semester where I actually have a full schedule. I mean, well, I've had a full schedule before, but this is a full schedule that I'm completely taking all my classes on campus, which is awesome. I mean, it's a little stressful as well, just because like every single morning I have a class or multiple classes to go to. But I am still going to fully enjoy the experience, just because, I don't know, there's just something that you lose when you take a class online. There's obviously no interactivity between you and the other students. I mean, sometimes there is, but it's very minimal. And most importantly to me, there's no contact between you and the teacher, aside from maybe the occasional email and just instructions that they will give, on the associated website or whatever. So it's really nice to be able to see all my teachers face to face. So for this semester, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I was able to sign up for my follow-up math class, the one I wasn't able to take last semester, which is, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously the first week, so it's really hard to gauge, exactly how, I don't want to say easy any of these classes are going to be. But math, this is intermediate algebra. This is the follow-up to the math class I took last year. And I mean, it's probably going to be the most difficult class that I have, mostly because, well, it's just going to require the most work outside of the classroom. I mean, I just spent probably at least a good 2 or 3, maybe even 4 hours doing homework this weekend. And I mean, it's just, it's math. So a lot of times it's just memorizing formulas, and then if you get questions wrong, you got to do a different question over, because I mean, we're doing our homework online, and it takes the most time. It's definitely it's way more difficult for me to crank out anywhere from 18 to 25 questions per homework assignment, and do anywhere from, I don't know, I think it goes even up to like 9 assignments per chapter. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think we're doing like maybe a chapter a week. It may even be, it might be 2 chapters a week, depending on the amount of content, but that's what it feels like at this point. It may, that may change in the semester. So at least right now, what I'm just trying to do is, make sure I'm caught up at least with that chapter that we worked on, during the week. And the instructor has made it a point to say that every 2 chapters is when we're going to have our test on said chapters. I don't know if that'll be good or bad. I can't remember exactly if we did the same thing in the class that I had last year. I think it was like a test per chapter, but I might be wrong on that. Either way, it's just a matter. This time I am not going to do what I did with my math class last year, which is get completely cocky and arrogant and think I don't need to be in the classroom or anything like that. I am going to go to every class and, make sure to pay attention, to all the lectures and so forth. Right now, we're doing like chapters 1 and 2, and Most of it is just review, which is good because, it's been close to a year since I've, had any math. I was hoping that I could just kind of keep the stream going and, take it, last semester and just be done with my math requirements. That's not to say that, I might have to take more math classes in the future, but at least as far as the 2-year degree that I'm going for at MATC, this will fulfill the mathematics requirement for the degree. So, my goal, obviously, with every class, every semester is to strive for an A. But I'll just have to, keep at it, make sure I get all my work in, just pay attention to stuff. But the other 3 classes I have, I am also taking my follow-up English course. For those of you that may be keeping track, that was one of the classes I dropped last semester. That was one of the 2 accelerated classes that I was taking. And if you remember, I was not very happy with the way that the instructor was teaching those classes. Or that class, I should say. It wasn't just, it was just the English class. I never got as far as to seeing how the science class was going to turn out, but decided that accelerated is just not going to really work for me. So I just decided to drop them both. So this English class, some of it is going to be review, which is okay with me. If there are papers that are going to be due that were about the same subject matter, then that just makes my life easier because I can just turn that stuff in again because it's not the same instructor. I made sure of that. But this instructor seems to be pretty decent. Again, it's too early to tell when it comes to new teachers. I don't do what a lot of students seem to do, which is base their enrollment on hearsay. I'm more focused on what's going to fit in my schedule, not necessarily, the pros or cons of the instructor themselves. But of course, it's always good when the instructor is someone that kind of fits with your learning style. And I mean, again, it's too early to tell. I don't know just yet if I'm going to really like the class or not. But, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, so far, so good. The only thing I've been graded on thus far is that she likes to give a quiz on the homework, basically, I think every class period, which I have that class two days a week. So, it's basically every day I think there's going to be a quiz to start off the class session. But she does say that she works her students a little bit more intensely in the first half of the semester, and then things kind of back off a little bit for the second half because like most classes, there's a research paper involved. Oh, big shocker there, right? What's nice though is that it seems, at least based on what I've been told, is that there is a paper that I think we turn in like halfway through the semester that we'll start working on probably in the next couple weeks. But the research paper that we do at the end is actually most times just something that we can expand upon in that first paper. So it's not like I have to start from scratch like a 8 to 10 page paper. I can, I don't remember how many pages the first one is, but it's something like 4 or 5, I think. So we can just kind of build and add to that to get the grade for the final paper. So that's always great. And then the last 2 classes are the ones I'm probably going to enjoy the most, which may be weird to say because they are economics. They're both economics courses. But the reason I'm going to like them is because they are with a former instructor that I had last spring. Yeah, spring of 2014 is when I originally took this teacher's intro to economics course when I was still looking at focusing on an IT degree. But now, obviously, I'm in a 4-year transfer, so they require more economics. And thankfully, she teaches both of the required courses that I need. And I thought I'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone and just take them all in 1 semester. And the moment that I knew I was going to be going back to working nights, I made sure to hold off on taking these courses until that was the case so that I could have her as my instructor. And I've already had like a couple conversations with her because now I have her class, I have her as an instructor 3 days a week, which is great because I think she's a great teacher. She is really good at making things flexible for the student. So, we can do one of 3 different methods of getting points in her class. And what's great is that she does not grade on a percentage. So it's not like, if it was like 100 points total to get an A, it's not like you have to get 90 or more for that to be an A. She gives us like somewhere around like 400 points total to earn, and all we need to do is earn like 200 and some odd points, and that's an A. Now, as far as like how we get those points, that's up to us for the most part. So, like for example, there'll be quizzes once a week, and this applies obviously in both classes because she's the instructor. She keeps her teaching style the same across all classes. So there's quizzes every week on, whatever material we're focusing on for that week. And then there's also practice quizzes as well, which are like half the amount of points. But points are points. And all we got to do is just build those points up till we get 200 and some odd. And then we have a grade there. Simple. But the quizzes are just one aspect of it. So there's also papers that you can write, which those are, I think, like 20 points each. And I think there's 2 or 3 of them that we can do. But then there's also like in-class activities that we get points for. And she's even sweetened the deal since the last time I took her as an instructor. And she's given us like these tokens. So I have a token, one for each of her classes, and it's a token that essentially gives you like a free, I don't know how you word it, like a free absence, because she's pretty rigid on making sure her students are in class, attending classes, because as it is with any class, if you miss a few, you're going to fall behind drastically to the point where you're not going to be able to catch up. So she tries to give incentive to come to class, every day on time, so on and so forth. And so she gives us these tokens. And if I say miss class for whatever reason, I got a flat tire, and I couldn't make it to campus, then I can turn in the token and it won't count against me. I'll still be out for that lecture or whatever happened that day, but as far as like point values, that kind of keeps things even. But say, and this is likely what'll happen with me because I don't miss class. That's just my personal policies. Like this is my money going towards the tuition. I'm not going to miss a class, as long as it's in my ability. If I do get a flat tire or something like that, then that's kind of out of my control. Obviously, make sure to maintain my car and everything, but you get what I'm saying. If at all possible, I will be at every class every day, till the end of the semester. So for people like me that strive to do that, if I don't miss any classes and, get all the work done that I need, then that's actually going to be another free 25 points when I go to turn it in at the end of the semester. So, she gives incentive just to show up. And if you show up and you're just there and you're not, being a dick or whatever, then you'll get basically free points. These are just the things that I really like about taking her class, is that she makes it so easy to get an A. Now I'm not saying that it's like the material is easy. Obviously those quizzes are going to be on the material. Yes, they are multiple choice, so I do have a 25% chance of getting the answer right if I was just to go through and guess. But for the, if you really want the good high score, then you're going to have to go into, read the book and, search for your answers or look through notes from lectures that day or whatever. So, the opportunity for an A is easiest in her classes. Like, for anyone to not get an A, to me, it just feels like they don't care. That's the only reason I would feel that they wouldn't get an A in her class. I mean, she makes it so easy to get A's. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to hold off on taking my economics courses until I was able to take them with her as my instructor. So the other perk is that she has informed me that if there's overlapping with assignments and so forth, including anything I might have done in her intro class last year that I still have on file, which I do. I've already looked through some of my previous work and see that there are assignments that were done in there that I can turn in again in these classes. Now, some of them may require a little bit more, because in these 200 level courses, the papers, she's going to require sources and things like that. But she's already told me, she says that, if there are papers that I have written, I can just update them and then, do maybe a little more research, perhaps add another page, because she does have a word count requirement on these and things of that nature. But like, for example, the first assignment that we had for both classes was the same thing. So I literally just wrote it for one class, did a copy paste, turned it in for the other class, and I got credit for both. So, and I mean, I already had this discussion with her. Like, she made it clear. She's like, well, you're in both of my classes, so there's not really a point to have to, write something fresh to basically say the same thing. And that's why she's letting me turn in even old work. If I need to update or whatever, then do so. But for the most part, I can just turn in work I've already done, which is great. I mean, that just makes my life even more easier in taking these classes. So that's, it's just strategies like that. If you have a teacher that you really enjoy and that they make things easy for you to do in their class, to make it the easiest way to earn a good grade in their class, then freaking go for it. Stick with what you know and stick with what works. That's always going to be my policy. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to the semester. Like I said, the math is going to probably be the most difficult just because it's going to require the most work. Whereas the two economics courses, they're kind of counting more as like one class or maybe 1.5. Obviously the material will diversify more as we get further into the semester. But there is overlap, and that's going to, that'll just make my life even easier. And then English is just staying on top of all the reading, and just making sure I comprehend the material, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, it seems manageable. The semester seems manageable. It's more, right now, it's just about adjusting to the schedule. Cause like I said, these are early mornings and I work till, 11 o'clock in the evening. So it's like, it's an all day thing. And yeah, I was really struggling sleep wise by the end of the week. But hopefully the things that occurred during the week, I've gotten taken care of and straightened out. And it's just, adjusting to, the new routine. That's usually the only thing that typically trips me up, is that when I have a set routine, everything's fine. But when that routine gets, messed with, then that's when things get a little hairy for me for a week or two. So it's just, it'll be a couple weeks of adjusting to the new schedule, and then after that, it'll probably be no problem at all. The nice thing is that most except for like 2 of the days, I think, I have usually between an hour and a half to 2 hours between when my last class gets out for the day and then when I gotta go, head to work. So at least, this week, that's when I'll usually leave campus and go to work, and I'll just kind of, sit in the parking lot and I'll take a quick little cat nap. And then that re-energizes me for the rest of the day to be able to not fall asleep while I'm working or anything. But as I adjust to the schedule, I probably won't need those quick little naps anymore, and then I can use that time instead to, try and knock out some of my homework ahead of time. So far, I've just been using it to do some reading. The nice thing is that a lot of times some of the assigned reading is like a story of some sort that we have to read. So what I do is I just go find that story somewhere online and then just print it out. And then I bring the printout with me to work. So then when I'm, waiting for my machine to run, then, I can get some reading done or even do it during break time. Which I will add, like, the one thing I really hate about this new job is that they really like to reward workaholics at this place. So, I already know that I wouldn't be a fit as far as like, working here the rest of my life or anything. But to give you an idea, like the place I came from, I already thought did things a little weird because they only gave one 15-minute break and then a half an hour lunch. Most places I worked at before that usually will give you two either 10 or 15-minute breaks and then your half hour lunch. And so when I went to the last place I was at and only had one break and one lunch, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I guess they like to work you a little more. But what this new place that I'm at is even worse, because our lunch break is only 15 minutes long. And then after that, we only get one 10-minute break after that. So we get less than half an hour total break time through our 8-hour day. Now, I mean, the perk of that is that the lunch and breaks are paid. So we're only there for 8 hours, but I don't know. I think I'd almost rather have the longer lunch if it meant being an unpaid one, but it's whatever. I mean, if anything, it's just more incentive for me to, not ever get the idea that, machining would be a better life for me or something like that, and then quit school. So if anything, this job doing crappy things like that is just doing me a favor. It's just keeping me motivated. Like every day I still go into work, and I hate what I do. I mean, it's not going to change with any new place that I go and work at. The work is still the same and it's still work I don't like doing. Which I mean is going to be ideal to keep me motivated to continue on with my schooling. And one other thing I totally kind of skipped over here, is that with so for those of you that might remember, I was really dead set on making Japanese my major. That has changed. I have just discovered that it's going to be too difficult and it's going to cost me more money and time for that matter if I were to make Japanese my major. That's not to say I wouldn't want to make Japanese my major. It's just that the way things are going, it's not going to be doable for me unless I add both more time and, as a result, more money into tuition fees and things of that nature. So I've decided that I'm going to change my major. I haven't 100% settled on my new major, but I'm very much leaning towards microbiology. Just because the idea of, working in that field would be satisfying. Now, the thing is that, some of you might be thinking well, you were focusing on Japanese because the plan, the name of the show is still The Road to Japan. That ultimate goal still is there. It's there as an option. It'll always be there as an option because remember, this is the requirements to become an English teacher in Japan is that you just need to have a bachelor's degree and no criminal record. So, I can still come out with a bachelor's degree and I can still use that bachelor's degree no matter what the major was and still be able to go to Japan and teach English. And honestly, I can use that degree to teach pretty much anywhere, which is something that I've been almost daydreaming about, really, is like, why does it have to just be Japan that I teach English in? Why not, what doesn't it sound thrilling to maybe become like almost a traveling teacher? Because, there's nothing to say that you have to stay in one place. The only requirement is that you fulfill your contract for the length of time, which that usually is just 1 year. But it sounds really exciting to me for the idea of, spending, say, like a year in Japan and then, opting to go somewhere else, like, somewhere else in Asia, like Thailand or China or Korea, or even go to like some of the European countries and teach English over there. The thing is that like I've mentioned that I will at some point go through Oxford seminars to, get like the kind of ESL portion of teaching English when I'm done. And the thing is that they show you like a list of all the different countries that they work with. And they tell you like, the pay there and what the cost of living is, and they usually will compare it to like the United States and Canada and so forth. But I mean, like, the options are out there. Like, it doesn't have to be just isolated to Japan. Now I realize, yes, this is the road to Japan, so that's still going to be like the big ticket goal. But I mean, everything's still, I don't know, everything's like up in the air for me right now. As far as like, if with changing my major, who knows what could result from that. As I'm working in those particular courses, maybe something will come along my way to where I can start, I don't know, doing like an internship as a research scientist or something. Or like what I continue to hear is that there's aspects, like if you want to go into graduate school, that you can start teaching once you get your bachelor's degree here, in the States. I think even MATC in particular allows their instructors to work at least on a part-time basis or something when they finish their bachelor's degree while they're working on, either a master's or a PhD. So I mean, it's still kind of a big question mark for me as far as where the end game is going to be. But I always have teaching in Japan in my back pocket. And I mean, it really just depends on where I am at the end of this journey. If it stops at me getting a bachelor's degree, then we'll have to wait and see, what's available to me at that time. I mean, if it's not looking hopeful for something to get me, into the next stage of, whatever the eventual career turns out to be, I'm pretty set on doing some kind of teaching. That just sounds interesting and exciting, and I, really like the idea of helping others, especially like aspiring students, especially like myself. So I mean, yeah, it's a kind of a who knows deal right now. But I still always got Japan there. That's why I haven't, changed the name of the show or anything like that. The website's still the same and all that. So, I basically got roughly a year now to decide, because of the fact that I'm not doing Japanese anymore. I also don't have to worry about starting my university classes this year, and instead can wait till probably next year, like next fall, to finish up the classes I have at MATC before moving on to UWM. So probably sometime over the next summer is when I will come to a final decision on what my major is going to be. And hopefully it'll be a well-researched choice. Like, I'm hoping I won't select something that's ended up going to be something I'm not interested in. But anyway, that's, something to look forward to in the coming semesters and sessions and breaks and all that good stuff. So, with all that being said, now we're pretty much at the end of the show. The only last thing I want to leave you with here before I depart for the first time in many months is just some tips that I sort of learned as I'm rolling into this new semester. In particular with the books that we students get for our classes, a lot of times, and I'm sure this applies to anyone taking classes at any college or university, is that the bookstores at your respectable establishments will gouge the hell out of your wallet. They did so with me this semester, that's for damn sure. I just went ahead and basically paid the convenience fee of purchasing my books from the bookstore at MATC. And later learned, one of the first things that my economics professor told us was that the markup on these books compared to what the school actually pays for them is something like 50%. 50% higher than what they paid the publisher and so forth. So the other thing, and this is something that really irritates me about the way that the book policy that this college has, but I think a lot of colleges have this same policy, so it's not like going somewhere else would really solve the problem. But if you buy a book brand new, it usually will come bundled with an online code, so you can use any website that's associated with the book should your teacher require it. And the pain in the ass with that is that even if you buy a used book and then it turns out your instructor still requires for you to do online homework, like for example, thankfully the only teacher that requires it this year is my math instructor. He did say it was optional because we could just use the book and do our homework with the questions in the book, but that's even more work for me, mainly because you have to write all that crap out and you got to keep something somewhat organized with it, as opposed to just kind of using scratch paper to do the work and then inputting your answers online. That's a lot more organized for me, so I still chose to go the online route with the homework. But the thing is that if you try to sell your book back at the end of the semester, which is what my school does, they will not take your book back unless the code that came bundled with it is still intact, meaning you haven't used it. So one of the strategies I decided to implement this semester is that I bought all my books brand new, and except for the math book, actually. The math book was in what they call used condition, which just basically means that someone had bought it before, brand spanking new, still in the shrink wrap and everything, opened the shrink wrap, realized maybe that they got the wrong book or something like that, and returned it, or had to sell it back. I'm not sure how that procedure works, but either way, it basically was just not in the shrink wrap. So because of that, I was able to pay a used price for it, which is always a nice perk. And it still came with the online code. So what I did is instead of using the code in the book, I decided to buy the code separately on the website, like as if I had bought a used book. Now that code ended up costing me an extra $100 and some odd. So it wasn't cheap. But usually these math codes are not affordable in any way, shape, or form. The other types of classes, like my English or economics courses, would have been a lot cheaper, probably like in the $30, $40 range. But thankfully we don't have to use those codes, so that still in a way saves me money. But the reason I bought the codes separately for my math course instead of using the one in the book is that now I can sell that book back at the end of the semester. So what I'll be able to do is sell all these books back, and at least get half my money back, because I think they usually buy them back for around half the price, which is great. I mean, that's just extra money in my wallet that I can put towards either books for next semester or tuition payments or save money for something else, because there's always something I need to save money for. So that's like my tip to you, is that if you're buying books brand new, you may want to, if you can afford to, consider purchasing the online access separately, but only if you need to, obviously. If you're fortunate enough to have an instructor that doesn't require the online access at all, then depending on, how and when you bought your book, you may even be able to return it if you haven't opened it. And then return it and buy like an older version, which is what a lot of my instructors recommend these days, because they're not any more happy about the price gouging that the school does to us any more than we are. They don't think it's fair, and they think it's kind of ridiculous. So a lot of times, if they're able to, which most of the time they are, they will refer us to get like an older edition of the same book, because most of the time the content has very little changes between editions. It essentially just comes with a new cover and a new reason to try and gouge our wallets. So if that's doable for you as well, then I definitely recommend going that route, because you can get previous editions on Amazon or eBay for as little as $20 or less. So always look at that as an option. I decided this semester to go with, the buying new and just selling it back, at half price with all the online code business. And I mean, whether it's a smarter strategy, I don't know. I guess probably not. Mostly because like the other 3 classes besides math didn't require online access, and the content is relatively the same. So I could have ultimately saved probably a few $100, just buying old used editions. So that'll probably be something I implement, later on, in coming semesters. Cause I mean, I'm still pretty early in this game. So it's always a learning experience, not just of the content in the classes themselves, but just also like how to be an efficient college student. Not just in time management, but also like money management, making sure that my dollars are not getting wasted and so forth. So that's why I'm, using the show as a way to kind of pass along any tips that I have. And the last tip being that, and this was something that actually just came to me a few hours ago when I was still wrapping up my math homework, is that, like, as I was saying, I do my homework online. So I'm on a website, just basically inputting the answers, but I still have to do the work most times on scratch paper. So I have like a little notebook here that I just keep on my desk, and that's where I jot basically, anything that's relevant to whatever it is I'm studying or researching at the time. In this case, it's math, so I'm just kind of jotting down this, that, and the other. But it just kind of struck me. I was like, the teacher uses a whiteboard to write stuff on, and go over things. And then it's obviously something that, he can erase like an old chalkboard. And it just occurred to me, like, why don't I have a whiteboard for doing my math stuff? So I went on Amazon and looked up to see if there was affordable whiteboards and markers and erasers and so forth. And you can actually get a whiteboard that's roughly the same size as a sheet of paper, as far as length and width, for about $6 or $7. And if you have the Prime shipping, then that's free shipping as well. And I was able to find also a little kit with, it has 4 or 5 markers in it, an eraser, and then like some cleaning solution for another $6 or $7. So I'm able to get a whiteboard that can fit in my backpack, as well as an eraser and some pens and some cleaning solution, all for like $15. So that may be something you want to think about if you're taking a class that requires you to just kind of jot stuff down, but the whatever you're jotting down is not something that necessarily needs to be saved. So, like in this case, something that you can jot down, do what you need to do, and then erase it and start with something fresh. So, that's something I'm really looking forward to. And then even when, I'm done with the math class, I can still use it, because I think the whiteboard comes with like little magnets you can put on it or whatever. And then you can put it like on your fridge or hang it on the wall or something. And that can make it useful for, I don't know, like a grocery shopping list if I think of something, or to write notes to myself to stay on top of things, what have you, So that's just kind of, some tips that I thought of just over the last week or so. And with that, I mean, I'm gonna pretty much wrap it up. There's not really much else to discuss at this time. For those of you that have been following along and wondering where the hell I've been, now you kind of have an explanation. And I do apologize if some of you were wondering and waiting and being like, where the hell is he? He kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Is he still in school? Did he quit? What happened? So I mean, I'm still trucking along here. Things are still looking good, and they slowly are looking to improve as well. Which there's more I will add, but those will come in later episodes. And as a reminder, keep an eye on the Twitter account. If you don't follow it, I strongly recommend that you do. The Twitter account is @TheRoadToJapan, and that will be where you can get a lot of updates. Obviously, that's where I post, shows when they're done and ready to go. I also post on the Facebook page, but it's also a place to keep an eye on for when I kind of get this whole streaming business worked out, because then I can, as I get settled more into the schedule of the semester, I can maybe settle on a time that I can just do every week as far as like a stream. So I can just say, tune in on this day at this time if you want to, watch the show stream live. Because I'm hoping that maybe by doing that, and if I can set a solid schedule to do so, then maybe, people that tune in can ask questions or whatever, or maybe just have some kind of conversation or whatever. I don't think I'll be doing anything like call-ins or anything like of that nature, because I don't think I'll have enough patience to figure out that setup. And I don't know, I always get kind of weirded out when shows take calls, because sometimes you always get that one person calling and they're just like, and they just don't really know what to say. They get like stage fright or something. So, I'll probably just stick to using maybe like a chat log or what have you, as I go on the stream. But don't worry if you can't make it for whatever that day or time would end up being. Because like I said, the idea is that these stream sessions, whenever I get around to doing them, will be archived as well. So you can always, if watching is easier than listening for you, then you can at least still watch the show, and tune in that way. And, remember, I still have the email, I still have the Facebook page. So you can always write email @theroadtojapan.com, or search for the show on Facebook, or search for the @theroadtojapan on Twitter. And you can submit questions or comments in any of those fashions, and you can always be assured that they'll get addressed on a future episode. More than likely the next one, whatever the next one happens to be after you write your little whatever. So anyway, that's gonna do it for me. I am gonna take off now and do a little bit of relaxing before I gotta start up the next week. So I don't know when the next episode will be. It's kind of up in the air right now, but it'll probably be within the next week or two. And like I said, I'll be working on ways to still feed in some video content. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It's not the end of things on the YouTube side of it. So just stay tuned for further updates coming soon. But for now, I'm out of here. Minasan, ganbatte.